Today I'm going to be diving into the one strategy that I think creative entrepreneurs, specifically wedding photographers, those are my people, and the one strategy that I feel like people miss a lot. This is something that when I started implementing this into my own business, I felt a lot more confident and capable business-wise in terms of like bookings, knowing exactly what to focus on if I wasn't booking as much as I wanted to, and even other things. It affects things like knowing what to tweak on my website instead of burning the whole thing down and like rebuilding the whole thing from scratch. It helps me essentially just look at my business overall and be like, okay, what's working well? What do I need to tweak to see the results that I actually want to see? So we dive in. If we haven't met, I'm Manali of Manali Photography. I'm a business coach for creative entrepreneurs. I'm at Manali Sentike over on Instagram, and I'd be more than happy to chat with you. Gonna dive right in. This one applies to creative entrepreneurs as a whole. So if you're not a wedding photographer, keep watching along. The one strategy that I think a lot of creatives overlook or miss is really having a strong view of your data. Now, I know that data is a big word, numbers, we don't love them as creative entrepreneurs, but I think a lot of times we think data and looking at the analytics is going to be way more confusing and overwhelming than it necessarily has to be. I think if you can do this at a very small scale level, it's still going to benefit you, and you don't have to get in the depths and in the weeds with something like Google Analytics, because we see that it can get so crazy complicated. A lot of us don't even touch it. And so I'm really advocating for having some semblance of an overview of the data, the analytics, the numbers in your business so that you can make more informed decisions around your strategy and what to tweak instead of feeling like the whole business or the whole strategy is not working. Data really helps us funnel in to figure out what is actually the problem spot, because usually it's not that your strategy as a whole sucks. Usually there's just a little gap somewhere along the strategy that when we can fix and solve for that gap, you're going to start converting and booking more leads a lot more quickly than if you try a strategy, it doesn't seem to be working for 30 days, and then you ditch it and then you try another one. That's how we lead ourselves to burnout. Trust me, I have been the person who's done that before, so I totally get it. And I understand that it can be really hard to figure out the nuance and be like, oh, this is the specifics. I'm getting people on a consult call, but the problem is not getting them on a consult call. That's working out just fine for me. The problem is after the consult call, I'm losing a lot of my bookings. So that way you're not throwing out your whole inquiry system as a whole. You're just looking at that one part and that one gap to solve where it's, okay, how can I put in an even better follow-up system in place after the consult call so that more people are booking? Or is there anything that I need to do on the call before they hop off to make sure that I'm retaining that booking? Things like that. That's just a very quick example that I feel is really relevant to any creative entrepreneur who's doing consultation or discovery or strategy calls. Before we dive deeper into how to use data for your business, I offer a free 30-minute strategy session where we can do a deep dive for your specific business. So if something that I say during this video intrigues you and you're like, oh, I want to dig deeper into that for my own business, there's a link down below in the description. It's a free 30-minute strategy session to make sure that you get like a good direction of where to take your business next, or we can troubleshoot for anything that you're like, oh, this feels off. Click that link, schedule that strategy session. It's totally free, and I would be more than happy to help you one-on-one with it. So you can take that same principle and apply it across the board. For you, that gap might be somewhere else. It might be that you're getting a ton of website traffic, but you're not getting a lot of like people actually contacting and reaching out to you. So that's one place where data can be really helpful, because it might not be like, oh, you need to be posting to Instagram more because you feel like not enough people are reaching out. It might be like you're posting to Instagram, there's enough people coming to your website, they're just not getting to the contact page. So we can solve for increasing your conversions within the website page without having to ditch whatever marketing strategy you're using. Hi, Keej. Hi, buddy. Am I gonna jump? No? Okay, bye. Essentially, when you're trying to run your business without any semblance of data, it's like trying to navigate to a place without having a map, which I remember today's map class. I feel like if I were living in the 80s, I'd have a really hard time getting around because I need the GPS and the navigation. And that's how it can sometimes feel in business. You feel like you're trying all the things, but things are just not working out. I feel like when you start to implement having a routine of looking at your numbers and looking at your analytics consistently, like every week or every 2 weeks, maybe even just once a month, that kind of gives you the roadmap and that navigation to know that you're on track, or be like, oh, we took a wrong turn, but we need to reroute. There's different types of data to also look at. So different places where you can use the strategy or start to infuse the strategy in your business is one, really look at your booking sales process. Right? So anything from somebody first coming across you to actually booking you and becoming a paid client, look at that pathway, or look at those steps that somebody takes from finding out about you to actually becoming a client. Look at every single step and every single point instead of being like, oh, my booking process isn't working, which I'm sure that there's some parts that are working. So we want to just narrow in on what are the parts that we can improve and tweak so that we have better conversions with the people that are already coming in the door too, right? So this makes it a little bit easier because you're not like, oh, I just need to keep marketing more. Marketing might not actually be the thing to solve for. It might just be your conversion and like your conversion numbers and the number of people who actually go through the whole process. So that's just one example of how you can use data in your business. Another one is actually using it on the marketing end of things. I have fallen in the trap of being like, oh, my marketing strategy is not working. That's where this one gets me. And so something that I really need to be better about is actually looking at my Instagram analytics every single week or every single 2 weeks, because I am the first to be like, oh, it's not really working, instead of really digging deep into my analytics to figure out what type of content is working, what I can leverage and make similar content around in the future, making sure that I am speaking directly to my target audience and that the Instagram algorithm knows that those are the people that I want to talk to. For me, I also have to apply the same analytics on my email platform. So really looking at like the open rates. For me, the open rates aren't the issue. For me, I know it's the click-through rates are a lot lower, even though the open rates are historically pretty high. So for me, that kind of keys in, okay, let's make it easier for people to click to what they want to read about. I tend to be really long-winded in my emails, as I maybe am in my YouTube channel as well. And that's like a tweak that we're making for this upcoming year, is making sure that people can actually click off to the content, or I get to the point a little bit faster in my emails. And that's just a quick example of how I'm using this on the marketing side of my business. So step number 2 is actually taking the time to set up the data collection. Instagram, Pinterest, the analytics are pretty good. I would say YouTube as well is really up their analytics game recently, I've noticed. Usually your email marketing platform is pretty good. You can tell what content is doing well. And Google Analytics for if you are blogging consistently and for looking at your website traffic. So those, I would say, are the 5 different main places to make sure that you have data collection set up. It already has it set up. Google Analytics requires a little bit more of it set up, but I actually do have a video that I recorded in the past about how to get your Google Analytics set up started and how to look at the numbers and what to look at so you're not overwhelmed with all the little deep dives that you could do with Google. So I'm going to link that video down in the description below. And so the second thing, after you've got your initial setup, is actually making a recurring reminder to look at it time and time again, and not just like once and then you totally forget about it. Like really implementing it as a strategy and a routine that's in your business and how your business operates is super beneficial. I'm laughing at myself a little bit internally because this is the big to-do that I have for next year, is getting back into the rhythm and routine of like actually looking at the analytics. I used to be really good about this within, I would say, like the first 1 to 3 years of my business, and I've fallen off it a bit, just being totally candid. So that's something that I'm personally working on for this upcoming year. So that would be tip number 2. Tip number 3 would be to drill it down into the basic information that you know you need to check, because it's really easy to want to click over to all of the things because there's so many things that it does track, but really figuring out what is actually relevant to you, relevant to your business, and relevant to your booking, and then really honing in on that information and having a place to track it so that you can view what that looks like over time. That is very beneficial. And I think the easiest way to do this is to put it into an Excel document or a Google sheet. Even like a Google document is totally fine, but that way you can look at it over time. And something that I always tell tell my clients is make sure that you're comparing the current quarter or current season to the same quarter from like the last year. The way that wedding photography is, it's a little seasonal, and the seasonality depends on your location too. Arizona's shooting season is a little different than Virginia's shooting season. And same thing goes for, I would say, bookings as well too. So I would really recommend making sure that as you get into the habit and routine of this, compare January through March of this year to January through March of last year. Are there still going to be fluctuations year to year? Yes. I mean, we just went through like the pandemic. There's the whole thing with the economy going on. So again, like they're not going to be a perfect match, and they shouldn't be, just because there's going to be variables outside of our control. But bringing that comparison of seasonality can be really helpful, because if you're in the middle of summer, for me, historically, that's been really low in terms of bookings. And instead of me freaking out that I haven't booked in a month, I'm like, okay, it's June. I can see historically over the past couple of years in business that generally don't book a lot in June, so I don't need to necessarily freak out about it, but I can prepare for September, October when I tend to book a little bit more. So that is how to make sure that you are accounting for seasonality, especially if you're running a seasonal business or if you're in the wedding photography industry. Okay, so the last part of this video is making sure that after you get into a routine with checking your analytics, you are using that data to guide your decisions. So one of my earliest business mentors once said to me, she said a quote, she said a phrase, and it is to let, oh gosh, I'm blanking. It's basically to let the data inform your decisions, not the drama. So expanding on that a little bit, a lot of times it's very easy to make decisions in our business based off of how we feel rather than what the actual numbers or the data is telling us. And what's really interesting is if you're creative, if you're like me, I can really be in the high or the low of kind of just how I'm feeling about business. But when I take a look at the numbers that are objective, it's easier to take a step back and be like, okay, even though I feel like things aren't going well, here's the evidence of proof of how it's actually going. And for me, that can be a really good gut check. And then usually the best decisions in business, do I trust my intuition for some things? Absolutely. I'm not going to disregard that. But when it comes to tweaking certain parts of the process, usually I'm going to let my data guide that decision, because the data is going to tell a much clearer picture of what's actually going on than how I necessarily feel about something. That being said, I always tell my clients, give any strategy or any tweak that you make at least 90 days in business before you evaluate it and tweak it again, just because it does take some time for things to stick and hold. And usually that's the minimum of 90 days. I really think that number and like that time frame sometimes should be 6 months instead. If something is very clearly not working, then feel free to ditch. If you feel like it's borderline, I would give it like 6 months before you make a really big change to anything. But making sure that you are letting your data guide your decisions, or at least like taking the data into account when you're making those decisions, can be a huge game changer for how you run your business. So last thing that I want to leave you guys with is this can be so powerful in some of the smallest ways. I have seen with my own coaching clients, really taking a look at the numbers, we see things that we had missed otherwise. So I had one client who felt like she wasn't booking as much as she normally was. And so we started looking at every single part of the process and really looking at the numbers of everything. And we found out that her contact form wasn't working properly. So she had been losing a lot of leads because her contact form just wasn't set up. And there was one time for me where my contact form on the mobile version of my site, it was just really hard to figure out how to actually send it. And so that was something that I could easily fix and saw a spike in my bookings. And this has really been how I've started to make sure that I'm improving and tweaking each part of my booking process. And the one year that I really focused on this was the year that I tripled my income. And I really do think part of it was, one, putting systems in place, two, really drilling down and looking at all of the different parts of the pathway and where I was losing people. This can be helpful. We're so in it and we're like, yeah, everything works. I've checked everything like 2 or 3 times. But then having somebody else who can check things almost from like a client or a customer perspective is very valuable, just because it's so easy to miss things as ourselves because we're so used to our own process or so used to our own website. So having that secondary pair of eyes can be super helpful. So if you're in the market for a business coach, feel free to reach out. I do have a couple of spots open and I would love to chat with you and see if we could be a really good fit working together. But I really do believe, even if you don't have a business coach like in your back pocket, I would say take this kind of business deep dive work, do it with a business friend. Have them comb through your website, have them go through your inquiry process, have them look at your marketing content from an outside client perspective of, does this speak to me? I think, and specifically for your website and your marketing content, I would say instead of asking somebody who's in the industry, I would ask like a family friend or like a family member or a friend to do so instead, because they're not used to our jargon. Like they don't know how things work. So they're more similar to our clients than your like business best friend is going to be. So they can really point out things that they're like, I'm confused about what this means, or like, I'm confused about the next step in the process. It's really cool to see the questions that they have around your marketing content and your website and like your whole booking process. So that's a very valuable source of information. So if you haven't ever had somebody go through your website and just watch them as they do, that's a huge exercise to learn a lot from. And so I'm excited for you guys to try. If you try that, let me know how it goes down below in the comments, or shoot me a DM over on Instagram, because I'm curious to see what are the things that you didn't think about that they like brought to your attention, because it's wild. So that is everything for this video. Let me know if this was helpful. Let me know if you want me to do a deeper dive into any part of this. If you have questions as pertaining to your own business, or if you want me to do a quick audit or anything like that, I would be more than happy to. Just let me know. I do offer a free 30-minute strategy session for creative entrepreneurs to dive into this. So take me up on it. The description is going to have the link for it below. So that, I think that everybody should take advantage of this that is looking to work on this. So that's my free resource for you guys in this video. And I hope that you enjoyed this video, and I will catch you guys in the next YouTube episode.